Let's dive into the debate. Washington wanted control, Beijing wanted a say. The answer? 80-20 TikTok. A US majority, ByteDance in the minority, but one giant question remains. Who really holds the algorithm? Is it the power of the US or the influence of China? In this digital age, the stakes are high. What do you think? Comment below and let's discuss.
Gary, let's break it down. Our final thing of this week's version, TikTok deal creates control, I think is the key word for the United States. What does it mean?
Yeah, so the deal was actually reached here in Madrid just a week ago, but the U.S. and China agreed to
Wait,
resolve the
you told me you
controversy.
were not a big TikToker, Gary. I don't know.
Yeah, I was
US,
not part of the
TikTok,
conversation.
Madrid, Gary.
I just do the dances, Rob.
Okay. Okay.
Anyway,
I'm gonna
moving on.
find that account.
Yeah. So TikTok's U.S. assets are going to be acquired by a new company consisting of American investors, Oracle, Silver Lake, Anderson Horowitz. There are also rumors, I haven't been able to confirm this, but it looks like the Murdoch family may be involved as well. These American investors, and yes, I know Murdoch is not an American, but he's owned U.S. Media assets before. That's why I'm not sure if they're being included or not, but there are people speculating that they might be. Anyway, these non-Chinese investors, I guess is a better way to say it, are going to share approximately 80% ownership. ByteDance will remain a minority shareholder of approximately 20%. The company will be headed by an American committee with a spot reserved for a U.S. government appointee. The reason I say it that way is because, look, it's appealing to say, okay, wait, we want a government appointee to ensure that the Chinese aren't in control. Okay, that makes sense. But now let's think about the fact that right now the political left is screaming that President Trump's Federal Communications Commission pressured Disney regarding Jimmy Kimmel, and they're saying, oh no, we have censorship. Except, guess what? They're all forgetting when the Biden administration was going to Facebook, every time somebody on Facebook wrote something about the COVID vaxes that they didn't like, and we're saying, why is this account still in existence? And people were getting canceled very quietly. And why in the world was the Biden White House sending emails to a private company saying, deactivate the accounts of these private citizens, right? So the point here, the reason I
Well,
say
we
it
know
that
why.
way is, well, in other words, everybody's unhappy with the US government trying to control the media and trying to control social media, right? Nobody's happy with it, right? 15 minutes ago, the right was unhappy. Right now, the left is unhappy. So maybe we should all agree that at some point in the next 4, 8, 12 years, somebody's going to be exerting control that you listening to this will not be happy with. It's a problem. Anyway, President Trump extended the divestment deadline to December following previous extensions. As a result, right now, TikTok remains open in the US, but we do seem to have a deal. It's not complete yet, but we do seem to have a deal to transfer control. There are specific details regarding the algorithm and security measures regarding and ByteDance's role that still need to be finalized. And I'm not sure how that's going to be rolled out, but I guarantee you,
Yeah.
the Chinese are going to do everything they can to try to maintain
Yeah,
their algorithm.
that seems like a big piece of the puzzle, but sounds like okay, at least they're making progress. Here, I think that for me is like, what is the end goal here, right? So obviously, I mean, the way I play it out, you've got TikTok, you've got major mass consumption of content material by Americans, right? And obviously, we've seen the ability to control. We've seen previous administration's interest in talking to these companies as well as the current administration as well, right? In terms of what they're doing, how they're doing it, the information that they're pushing through to the user base. What's the goal here, right? Like, what's the U.S. trying to accomplish? How does this settle the private market side, if any? What's the goal here?
Yeah, so I'm going to tell you, Rob, I actually like this deal as much as I just criticized it. And the reason I like the deal is because I've read too many stories about how China uses the platform to influence US elections, create political conflict, and also influence American young people in a way they don't with their own Chinese subjects. The Chinese have been fighting an asymmetrical war with the United States for a good quarter century, and we just refuse to acknowledge it. And basically taking control of these conversations and creating political influence and conflict and influencing our young people in a way that US politicians and parents wouldn't want them to be influenced, right? This is what the Chinese Communist Party does. I think politicians and parents are right to be concerned here. They have every right, parents in particular, have every right to be concerned about the way their kids are being influenced. And so, look, in the previous part of this segment, Rob, I criticized government control of social media and the media. And I pointed out ways that the left is unhappy that President Trump's FCC is trying to exert control and influence right now. I pointed out ways that the right was unhappy with how the Biden administration did it. Okay. But as much as I'm against our government having control over our media, I would prefer that to the Chinese Communist Party having control over our media. And so, why do I like this deal? I like it because it took a horrible situation and made it marginally less horrible. And people might say, oh, so you're in favor of this. No, I'm not in favor of this. I'm in favor of horrible things being made less horrible. And politics has to be the art of the possible. And, one of the reasons why people so often criticize the Libertarian Party is because the Libertarian Party will often give up practical solutions for impractical perfection. And they say, hey, listen, we're going to be ideologically pure, but politics is never ideologically pure. Anything that takes something that's bad and makes it marginally less bad, like, let's just be in favor of that and acknowledge that we should always be working to improve that. And now that we have control in the US of this asset, or are going to, we should all work to reduce government control of all of our media. And, like, the next step is the next step, but this one is a good step.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, being in the space and understanding like the overall influence that these platforms have, I'm not honestly a huge particular fan of them in general, and especially when you are talking about the youth. And the younger they are, the more impressionable you get it into their hands. And you're exactly right. A war has been waged on the mindsets of American youth through social media, and a majority of it has been controlled by enemies, right? TikTok, number one. And then throughout the rest of the platforms, in terms of Facebook and Meta, Timu. You know how many investor calls I've been on in which they were asking me, right, in terms of this e-commerce market share, and you're talking about basic elements, clothing. We literally let Timu come in, utilize Meta, and put American businesses providing clothing out of business. More or less, right, is what we did. Or even if you take it to, outside of small, medium business to big box retailers, we started letting China and Timu compete with Walmart, right, and other American staples, right? I'm sure I'll get some flack for that. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's just time. Like you said, we've got things more stabilized than before, but it's also taking control of digital infrastructure, messaging, where it's coming from, what the real purpose intent is. Because at the end of the day, let's face it, Timu's purpose was not to sell clothes. Bottom line.
Right. Yeah. And so it's a great point, and we're starting to see with the elimination of the small, right? Before they got tariff exemptions on anything under $800, but the original intent of that wasn't for large corporations to ship millions of small packages. It was so the tourists who went abroad didn't have to pay all kinds of duties when they brought home, a couple hundred
That's
dollars
right.
of souvenirs.
That's right.
Right, that and it they didn't anticipate basically Amazon.com style businesses where, you had individual companies rather than shipping in bulk, they were shipping individual packages and
Yeah.
getting around the rules that way.
Yep. Yep. Great stuff, Gary. Thanks so much for the discourse as always.